I'd always known Roger was a crossdresser. Well, I'd known for the last 12 years anyway. I wasn't impressed to say the least when I first found out, but over the years it sort of faded into the background, and it became something I could accept without worrying about it. Once Roger understood that I had no real desire to see him, and when he was all tarred up, he did it only when he had the house to himself. He did once try to persuade me to allow him to wear a nightdress in bed, but it didn't work for me, and he soon gave up on that notion. Roger was a good husband in most ways, but it had always irked me that I was the one who had to do all the housework in spite of the fact that we were both in full-time jobs. A year ago, Roger was suddenly faced with retrenchment, which would have been a dreadful blow to him, but he managed to do a deal which saw him kept on for 3 days a week at a reduced salary. He tried to get consulting work to help make up the difference, but without much success. So, he found himself with time to spare. He redecorated the house, tidied up the garden, and dealt with several tasks he'd been putting off for years, but eventually he often found himself at a loose end with nothing much to do. Well, I guess what he did do. Of course, he spent more of his time dressed up, didn't he? As he did admit. So I put my foot down and insisted that he did his share of the housework now that he had the time. His share being most of it, naturally. I should perhaps explain that Roger's wardrobe, his feminine one, was very limited. As far as I knew, he only had 3 or 4 outfits of his own, all of which were definitely after 5. Apart from them, he had a few of my old dresses and skirts, and it was these he wore every Wednesday, his free day, to do the housework. I wasn't overly concerned. As long as it kept him happy and he did the work, who was I to complain? And he did do very well. The place started to look much better kept. The laundry and ironing were always up to date, and my life was suddenly a good deal easier. I told him how pleased I was with my new housemate, and he seemed terribly grateful. This had been going on for several months, and as far as I knew, it had remained a private matter that nobody else knew about. I certainly hadn't told any of my friends, but one day I accidentally let it slip out. Because it had become such a routine, I'd come to accept it as perfectly normal and forgot myself. What happened was this. I was visiting Betty, an old friend of mine. Betty was a widow who made a living as a dressmaker and was very clever with handicrafts, making children's and dolls' clothes. I was admiring some of her dolls' costumes, and seeing one doll in cap and pin dressed as a maid remarked thoughtlessly something like, "Oh, Roger would love that." As soon as the words were out, I realized I'd let the cat out of the bag and tried to cover up, but Betty, raising her eyebrows, inquired, "What do you mean, Carol?" I didn't know Roger collected dolls. Flustered, I couldn't reply immediately, but then I thought, to hell with it. Betty and I are old friends. So I told her, explaining that now Roger was no longer working full-time. He'd agreed to be my housemate 1 day a week. Betty certainly seemed surprised, but she took it in her stride. "How wonderful," she exclaimed. "I suppose you make him wear a dress and apron," jokingly said, and giving me a way out, and that I didn't have to admit that Roger was a habitual cross-dresser. I could simply have pretended that he merely did the housework, nothing more. But I had the feeling that she wouldn't have believed me. So I told her straight that it was Roger's choice. He told me that if I insisted he do women's work, then he'd wear a dress while doing it. Really? Oh, don't be embarrassed, my dear. It's not at all uncommon, you know. It seems that lots of men want to play at being maids. Roger had told me as much, so it wasn't news to me. Well, maybe so, but how do you know? I asked her. She regarded me thoughtfully for a few seconds. Make yourself comfortable, dear. You've confided your little secret to me. I think I should take you into my confidence as well. Let's get a glass of wine, and I'll tell you my little secret. And so, with a whimsical smile, she proceeded to surprise me as much as I had her. Betty, it seems, was trained as a seamstress in a fashion house many years ago. She married quite young, but in the course of a short marriage realized that she was bisexual. She didn't explain details, and her marriage ended with her receiving a good settlement, enabling her to be quite comfortable. She realized, though, that she would need to have an income, so at the suggestion of a friend set up a little business using her dressmaking skills, offering to make costumes, do alterations, etc. A little work started to come in via some local advertising and word of mouth, and things were going quite well. One particularly good order came when she was asked to make costumes for a local drama society pantomime, which were very well received. Shortly after, she smiled as she remembered, she received a telephone call from one of the young men in the drama club saying that he had been most impressed with her costumes and asking whether she could make him a costume for a fancy dress party. Betty agreed and invited the young man to come round that evening to choose a costume for her to start making. The young man, good-looking but very shyly, turned up and Betty began going through a list of costumes she thought might suit. Pirate, gladiator, etc. But the young man did not seem to be that interested. Finally, with some exasperation, she asked if he had anything in mind. She laughed as she remembered him going bright red and taking an age before blurting out, "Well, I thought I might go as a girl." Trying not to look too astonished, Jane had replied, "Yes, of course. Lots of men go to parties in drag. Is there anything particular you have in mind?" There was now an even longer pause before he almost whispered, "Well, I thought a sort of French maid's costume might be okay." At this, Betty had almost laughed out loud, but managed to restrain herself. She had almost instinctively taken command of the situation and tried to make it appear the most natural thing in the world as she began to discuss in detail what was required. She was even more astonished when he produced a rather poor quality photo, obviously cut out of a magazine, showing what appeared to be a rather manly girl wearing a very frilly and revealing French maid's costume with a rather severe, ill-looking woman seemingly instructing her. It took a little for it to dawn on Betty that the maid was in fact a man. Betty was determined that she would make the most beautiful, frilly maid costume for her young client, who made it clear that money was not a problem. So, for the next couple of weeks, the young man made several visits as the dressmaking proceeded. Betty found that she loved the feeling of power as he was forced to strip to the undies that he had purchased specially for fittings. As the dress neared completion, she noticed he was very evasive about when the party was taking place, and things started to fall into place. Some research led her into the shadowy world of transvestism, and when time for final fitting came, she challenged her young friend about it. And almost in tears, he had admitted that there was indeed no fancy dress party, and the costume was for his own use. This being made clear, it was easy for Betty to establish real control. Costume was for his own use. This being made clear, it was easy for Betty to establish real control. Having ascertained that he had his own wig, undies, shoes, etc., she insisted that Peter, that was his name, bring everything to a final fitting so that she could get the full effect of her work. By the time she had finished, she remembered he looked stunning. With some help from her on his hair and makeup, with his shapely legs and heels and silky black stockings and the massive ultra-feminine frills of his petticoats and penny, Betty had realized that this was exactly what she was looking for. Hardly able to keep her hands off, and she insisted that Peter, who she remembered being in a sort of daze, pose for a series of pictures for future use, and then asked him to sit whilst she discussed payment with him. Puzzled, the young man started to say that he had the money with him, but my clever friend had other ideas. "No, if you will help me in my business," she said, "you can have the costume for nothing." The young man looked confused. "Help? How?" he stammered. "Well, firstly, you can give me the names of some magazines where I can advertise to other transvestites. Secondly, you allow me to use photos of you looking absolutely gorgeous for publicity in them. And thirdly, what better way to use your lovely new costume than to be my maid a few times? After all, I need to understand the market I'm aiming for." Betty laughed again as she recalled the bewildered look on his face and decided to seize the moment. Without further ado, she had gone across and lifted his skirt and petticoats and straddled him where he was sitting and gave him what she was sure was the experience of his life up to that time. Her business plan was a great success. She found that TVs, as she had learned to call them, were prepared to pay very well for their specialist requirements, and very soon the business from that work was exceeding her straight business. Peter had become her occasional maid and toy boy, providing great sex on demand whenever she required, and life was good. One day, then, she had received an unusual call from a lady asking if a maid's costume such as she had seen advertised could be made for her daughter's husband. Of course, Betty had replied, thinking it a little strange that a mother-in-law would get involved in her daughter's sex games. However, when the time for the appointment came round, she had opened her door to the strangest customers yet. 3 ladies, one older than the others, were escorting, virtually manhandling, really a 4th into the doorway. The 4th, though, wearing a long coat and a headscarf, it rapidly became apparent was in fact a very unwilling man. The older lady was clearly in command. "Girls, take Ethel into the lounge and get her ready whilst I explain the situation to Betty here." The 2 ladies who held either arm of the struggling man virtually dragged him into the lounge as I showed them the way. "Now, dear," said the lady, obviously the mother-in-law, "my son-in-law, Eric, has been a complete bastard to my daughter, and it's time I took a hand. I've read about petticoat discipline, and I think that's just what he needs. I saw your advertisement in one of the magazines on the subject. So here we are. I don't suppose you have any objection to making a maid's costume for an unwilling man rather than your usual willing clients." Jane found the whole situation most amusing, even more so when she went into her lounge to find the hapless male Devist carved standing held by his 2 tormentors, his wife and her sister, clad in a rather old-fashioned corset, stockings, and suspenders. The mother-in-law broke the silence. "Right, Betty, my dear, do you start measuring? I want the frilliest, prettiest costume you can design. I want him to look absolutely ridiculous. He's going to be a full-time anal. So, I want 3 costumes, black, pink, and a nice lemon yellow. I think there's no way he's going to be Jack the Ladder around town anymore." So, Betty's business had taken another direction. The 3 costumes had been completed and sent at a cost of over £300. And shortly after, she had received a package of pictures of the errant Ethel showing him in each of the 3 costumes performing various menial tasks with the ladies laughing contemptuously in the background. Also, a note saying that a recommendation had been made to a friend with a similar problem who would be in touch, and she was coming from Betty. This was all pretty surprising, I must say, but it was a relief to know that I could share Roger's secret with an understanding friend. Betty didn't pursue the subject, and we went on to talk of other things. But as I was preparing to leave, she brought it up again. "Carol, it's Roger's birthday next month, isn't it?" "Yes, on the 23rd. "Why?" "Well, as he seems to be doing so well in his housemaid role, don't you think he deserves a reward? Would you like me to make him a proper maid's outfit?" "Oh, Betty, I don't know about that. I'm sure Roger would be so embarrassed knowing that you knew his little secret. Of course, I'd pay you for it."
But what was I saying?
Did I really want to see my husband all dolled up as a French maid? "Oh, Carol, don't worry about paying me. It would be worth it just to see him. And believe me, once you get him into being your maid, you'll find you will be in complete control of your marriage." "Hang on, Betty. To see him? You mean you want to see him yourself?" I asked. "I want to be there when you give it to him. It will be a birthday surprise. I'd just love to see him dressed up as a maid." I shudder to think what Roger's reaction would be to this. But Betty persuaded me that it would work out beautifully, explaining that while men like Roger prefer their dressing to be kept secret, they fantasize about being exposed and humiliated, which is apparently a big turn-on for them. So, that springing the sort of surprise on him that she was proposing would be bound to thrill him, whatever he said. At the time, I wasn't entirely convinced, but with that, Betty asked me to wait whilst she went into the next room and reappeared with an album, which proved to be the photos of her initial project. Peter wearing the most outrageously frilly and feminine maid's outfit it was possible to imagine. "I'm sure Roger would absolutely love something like this," she chuckled. I couldn't help but wonder how she could be so sure that she understood men like Roger, but I said little to dissuade her. It was a nice idea to give him a present of a proper outfit in place of the rather tired old summer dress he was using, and I was sure he would love it, but letting Betty actually see him was another matter entirely. I hoped that when the time came, I'd think of some way to discourage her. Over the next few weeks, Betty checked with me regarding Roger's size and measurements, assuring me that his outfit would be ready for his birthday. "What have you arranged for that weekend?" she asked me. "Anything special? Going up anywhere?" "No," I replied. "We don't generally make much of birthdays. We'll just be at home as usual." "Well, how about I drop it on you on Saturday afternoon for a little surprise?" Betty, I really don't think that would be wise. I said Roger might get really upset, angry. Even I just don't know how he'll take it. Oh, Carol, relax, darling. Trust me, we won't do anything to upset him. Look, what we'll do is this. I'll give you his outfit beforehand, and you can give it to him in the morning as a gift from me, which of course it is. If he asks where you got it, you can tell him I made it. No harm in that. Surely we're good friends. Roger knows it will go no further. If he really blows his top, you can phone me and I won't come. But remember, he might well put on a show of being embarrassed, but secretly, he'll be thrilled. I assure you, he'll be so grateful to you, you see. Well, I hope so, I said. Not at all.
Sure.
He'll be just dying to get into it, I tell you. But either way, whether he does or not, I'll turn up early afternoon if that's all right. And if he's not already dressed in it, I'll see if I can persuade him to model it for me.
How about that?
He'll know already that I made it, so he can hardly object, can he? The worst he can do is refuse. But I think we might be able to overcome any reluctance, don't you? I'm not at all sure about that. Roger can be infuriatingly stubborn, I said. We'll see then. Like to make a bet? I laughed. No, I don't think so, but I'll be fascinated to see how you make him do what you want. Betty winked. You'll see. Oh, I can't wait. Roger's birthday finally arrived. I gave him the usual token gift that we marked our birthdays with: aftershave, a smart shirt, a bottle of single malt scotch. Ouch, what a price that stuff is. And then, with some degree of trepidation, I handed him the large soft parcel containing his new outfit. For you, darling, I said, as a reward for doing the housework so diligently for me. Giving me a searching look, Roger slowly unwrapped the parcel, revealing the shiny black taffeta dress and a snowy white apron, cuffs and cap trimmed with black ribbon eyelet lace, and a full slip as well with several layers of stiff taffeta and net bellying out like a tutu. I do believe he was blushing. It's beautiful. How did you know? But of course, not hard to guess, I suppose. But where on earth did you get it? It's so well made, he said carefully, inspecting it all. Actually, I said, hard in mouth, I got Betty to make it for you. Betty, he exclaimed. You mean you told Betty? Oh, don't be angry, Roger, I pleaded. I didn't exactly tell her. I just accidentally let it drop that you were doing the housework for me. And well, it was her idea to make you a dress. That is, she won't tell anyone. Believe me, Roger groaned. Oh Lord, I suppose everyone and his dog will know all about me before long. No, Roger, they won't. How long have we known Betty? 12 years at least. She won't let it get out, she promised. Oh, well, nothing to be done about it now anyway, he said, and it's a lovely thought. Thank you, darling. Almost too good to wear for working. Relieved, I hugged him and we kissed. Yes, I said, too smart for every day. You'll have to keep it for best, jokingly, for when we have visitors. He gave me a playful slap. That'll be the day, was all he said to that. So, first hurdle overcome. No need then to put Betty off. The morning passed in the usual way. Some shopping, cleaning the car, but I could tell that Roger was itching to try on his new outfit. So, after lunch, I suggested he do just that. Go on, I said. I'm longing to see how you will look as a proper maid. He feigned reluctance for form's sake, but made only token resistance. I sent him off to the bathroom to shower, shave, and do his makeup. As I'd hoped, Betty arrived while he was still in there. Well, how's it going? How's he, Dad? Oh, yes, Betty. He loves it. In fact, he's in the bathroom now getting ready. But actually, all had gone quiet in the bathroom. Hearing a visitor, Roger was keeping quiet as he always did to avoid being caught out. It's all right, Roger, I called out. It's only Betty. Only I could imagine Roger's face. Silence from upstairs. Give me a minute, I said to Betty. I'll try to reassure him before he takes fright and undoes all his makeup. Make yourself comfortable. I went upstairs and tapped at the door. I found Roger fully made up but looking decidedly nervous. I smiled. Come on, dear. You might as well now. Betty would so like to see you. I bet she would, he replied. Oh, heck. What are you doing to me? All this, it was supposed to be strictly between ourselves. You know that. Why did you have to let Betty know? I swear I didn't mean to. I said. Well, truly I didn't. But if I hadn't accidentally spilled the beans, you wouldn't have that cute little outfit, would you? Now, come on. Put your wig on, and that black robe you have. Come down to the lounge, and let's see you. Surely you're tired of having to hide yourself away, aren't you? Now's your chance to show us how nice you look, and we promise we'll be nice to you. Bring the present down when you're ready. It's your birthday after all. It took a little more cajoling, but I sensed that what I'd said did have some truth. He was frustrated at having to keep hidden. He did want to be accepted in the role he'd chosen. So, while he finished making himself decent, I went down to Betty and gave her the thumbs up. You were right. He'll be ready very soon. Then he'll be coming down. Betty was delighted. What did I tell you? Oh, this'll be fun. Hesitantly, Roger made his entrance carrying the maid's costume on its hanger. Betty slowly appraised him and with a wide smile said, Very nice, Roger. Makeup a little bit overdone perhaps, but I must say I don't think I'd even recognize you unless I knew. But what should I call you? Surely I shouldn't be calling you Roger when you and your maid. Roger was so nervous he lost his voice at first. I haven't thought about it. Actually, he finally came out with HM. We'll have to remedy that. What do you think, Carol? Have you got a name for him? I mean her. Come to think of it, yes I have. For some reason I think of him as Rosie. Rosie? Yes, that suits. Well, then Rosie. She said, turning to Roger, I have a little present of my own for you, sweetheart. But first, you must let me see what you're wearing under that gown. Roger looked uncertainly toward me. I'm embarrassed, he said. Surely you don't want me to. Oh, come on, dear. Just sit down on that stool and lift your skirts. There's a dear. We're all girls together now, aren't we? She gently steered him over to the stool where he obediently sat and raised the hem of his robe to show his frilly black knickers.
Wow.
Betty said, What nice legs you have, and I love those wedge heels. Much more practical than stilettos. And what gorgeous frilly knickers. Roger didn't know where to look, unsure whether Betty was being sarcastic or genuinely nice. Come to that, I wasn't sure either. Now, here's my little surprise for you, Betty declared. From a carrier bag, she drew out what looked like a little doll's ballerina tutu, all fancy and frilly and white and pink. I was mystified as to quite what this was about, and I could see Roger was also. See a little dress for your Willie? She exclaimed. And before Roger could react, she pulled down the waistband of his knickers and grabbed his penis. Betty, I shrieked. What are you doing? Roger's jaw had dropped. Words had failed him. He tried to pull away, but Betty had a firm hold.
Shoo.
Now it's quite all right, Betty said softly. All I'm doing is dressing up your little Willie in a pretty little dress of its own.
See?
Every husband needs a Willie dress. Don't worry, sweetheart. I've seen it all before. Now, let me help you put this on. I was flabbergasted. I thought I knew Betty well, but I'd never in a million years imagined Betty would come up with something like this. How on earth? I started to ask her, but she cut me off. Don't ask, dear, but believe me, this is exactly what Roger needs to make his position clear, and I can see he really wants it too. Look at him. Roger was blushing crimson certainly, but seemed bare of speech as Betty slipped the tiny garment over his member, pulling the head right through and fastening it with ribbons that threaded through several pairs of eyelets like a little corset. As she tightened the ribbon lacing, Roger's member was remorselessly squeezed smaller and smaller until it was scarcely fatter than his thumb. How could Roger let Betty do this to him without protesting? I wondered. Did he secretly enjoy it? Surely he must, or he'd never let her get away with it. I began to realize the truth in her remark that once petticoat demand was completely under control. For that matter, what was keeping me silent? I was shocked to the core at Betty's extraordinary performance. She had finished lacing up the miniature corset now, and after passing the ends of the ribbon around Roger's stock, tied them fiercely in a double knot. They're done. Isn't that pretty, Rosie? Sweetheart, said Betty as she rose. That will keep you in order now. No slipping away to excite yourself when you should be hard at work. Now, tell me, how does it feel? Roger found his voice at last. Tell the truth. I can hardly feel it at all, he said.
Good.
That's the idea. For the time being, you can forget you were ever a man. You're a maid now, and that's the way you'll stay until Carol decides she's had enough and cuts the ribbon to release you. You won't be able to untie it, as you can see. So, you'll have to stay the way you are neutered. You could cut the ribbon yourself, of course, but then Carol would know, wouldn't she? And you wouldn't dare do that without her permission, would you, my sweet? That's the way you wanted to be, isn't it, Rosie? I suppose I must do. Roger mumbled. No, not good enough. This is what you should answer. Yes, madam. Don't forget.
Let's hear you.
Yes, madam. Roger repeated. I could hardly believe my ears. Roger had become a thoroughly cowed, obedient servant before my eyes. That's better. Now, let's get you properly dressed. Off with that robe, Rosie. Roger slipped off the robe, revealing his padded corset and a mound in his knickers where his member stuck out in front of him. Right, said Betty. Now, do you have a slip? Yes, of course. Roger replied and put on a brief black slip of his that he had brought down. Excellent, Rosie. And now, if you put on your new petticoats, they'll cover that up, that nasty little bulge, nicely. Betty said as she helped him into them. They did indeed, being in fact a whole set of petticoats, stiff in taffeta and net layers alternating, which flared out widely from his waist, making them rustle loudly as he moved. You could see that Roger really enjoyed them. He turned one way, then another, admiring himself. In the mirror over the mantelpiece. All right then, Rosie. Now, for the dress itself, I know how much you're wanting to see yourself in this, so here we are. Lift up your arms, please. And as he did so, Betty raised the dress over his head and, guiding his arms into the sleeves, slowly let it settle down around his waist. Roger was quite overcome, I could tell, as Betty ordered him to turn around so that she could zip him into the dress. It was certainly a very fetching outfit, and while it may seem strange to say, I had to admit that somehow it really suited him. The whole process was, I realized, making me very moist in my knickers. The possibilities of the situation were becoming very apparent to me. Betty set to and quickly completed his uniform, tying his apron in a neat little bow behind and setting the frilled cap on his head. There we are, madam, she said, addressing me. You're made to use entirely as you wish to carry out your every command. And turning to Roger, told him to curtsy and promise to be obedient at all times and always to do as his mistress commanded. Rosie, you look just perfect, I said. Don't you think Betty has made a marvelous job of that outfit? It fits you perfectly, doesn't it? Well, yes, I must say it is beautiful, Roger replied. A bit too good for actually working in, perhaps. Oh, I'll find plenty for you to do that won't risk spoiling your dress. Don't you worry. But I can't believe what Betty gave to you as her little surprise. Nor can I, said Roger with feeling. I'm absolutely shocked, Betty. Don't be, she replied bluntly. I've learned a thing or two about men like you. Believe me, and squeezing your willy into that little tutu is just the thing to keep you in your place while you're pretending to be a woman. Stops you from getting naughty ideas. Bring it out for us all to see as a reminder. Roger stared at her. Bring it out. What do you mean? Show us your pathetic little willy. That's what I mean, said Betty mockingly. You mean, said Roger, fumbling with the hem of his dress. Yes, that's right. Lift up your skirts, Maid. Drop your drawers and show us your little dolly. Slowly, awkwardly, Roger groped beneath his petticoats, found the waistband of his knickers, and drew out his preposterously befuddled member. That's right. Now, Rosie, tell us. What are you? I'm a maid, he whispered. Not just a maid. A maid.
Tell us.
I'm a maid, he replied. Louder. I'm a maid. You certainly are, and no mistake. Anyway, you look just precious, darling, I said. And now we'd like afternoon tea, Rosie, if you please.